All right, hello and welcome to my channel, everyone. As usual, God bless America. Today we're going to be listening to Biden letting the Trump's tax cuts expire and how it's going to affect you and me. From Forbes breaking news in high speed. So let's get straight into it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Secretary Yellen, for joining us today. As you know, last month, the inflation came in hotter than expected for the third month in a row, which is a hit to American families by itself, but it's not just a one-time impact. Inflation is cumulative, and hardworking Kansans have been suffering for 3 years now, as this chart behind me indicates. Since Joe Biden took office, inflation's up over 19%. Joint Economic Committee estimate that Kansans are paying an average of nearly $1,000 more per month for the same goods and services, the same food, the same clothes, the same gas, the same rent that they did in January of 2021. And since then, in total, the average Kansan household has spent $23,600 more due to inflation. At the same time, net income is down almost 4%. I know your boss and his administration like to point to rosier numbers, but the fact is, for everyday Americans, the chart behind me is the epitome of Bidenomics, and it's a
And I think that 19.4 is a very low estimate. I believe it's way higher than that, me personally.
complete failure. Several years ago, Secretary, you mentioned that and called inflation transitory. And since you said that, I think that's the wrong word, but I guess I'd like to ask you what you would call inflation now. What word would you use?
Well, inflation has come down considerably, and the consensus of thinking.
What world do these people live in? Inflation has not come down. Just because gas prices dropped a wee little bit doesn't mean inflation's down. Stupid.
Among economists is that it was largely due to supply shocks that are mitigating, and our inflation has been quite similar to that in other advanced countries around the world, which suggests it was due to supply shocks connected with the pandemic.
I think we'll have a difference of opinion in economists. I mean, we even had Democrat and Republican economists in 2021 talking about the extra spending that was coming, proposed by the administration, that was actually going to result in this inflation, and actually that's what we've seen.
Well,
I think most Americans would use phrases like crippling or painful or hindering the pursuit of the American dream. In fact, my constituents tell me about the challenges they face when they fill up their cars or buy the groceries or pay the rent or mortgage, and the numbers show the pain behind me that's still continuing to increase to this day. And they're the results of Bidenomics and the policies that have been increased by the Democrats over the last 3 years.
I think Americans
I do
care.
also want to switch gears a little bit before I run out of time. You mentioned earlier that in a discussion with Chairman Smith that President Biden was not going to increase taxes on people making less than $400,000. In fact, I have a tweet here from Joe Biden dated 1 week ago today in talking about the Trump tax cuts. And he said, this tax cut is going to expire. If I'm reelected, it's going to stay expired. I did some quick calculations, and basically what that means is that there's going to be a 25% increase in the tax rate on people that make less than $44,000. There's going to be an additional $14,000 tax increase on people making less than $95,000, and additional increases on others up until making the $400,000. So if this tweet is right, that came from President Biden, he is going to increase taxes on people making less than $400,000.
President Biden has repeatedly issued a set of principles that will guide his negotiations, and he has repeatedly said.
So that's literally raising the taxes on the middle class. And as the higher you go, the less the tax hike it is. Joe Biden's a liar and a plagiarist.
That he will not support increases on families making under $400,000. And I haven't looked at the tweet myself.
I really want to get to one other point before we run out of time, but I can send you this tweet.
She literally doesn't understand what he's saying. She must not understand what he's saying. Like, he literally just quoted Joe Biden.
If you'd like to see that later after the committee. But I do want to get and talk a little bit about OECD. I know it's been brought up before, particularly Pillar 1 and Pillar 2. I mean, I've stated several times in the hearing room that, in principle, Republicans and Democrats are in favor of eliminating the discriminatory digital services taxes and provide tax simplicity and consistency for businesses in a growing digital economy. However, despite ongoing discussions, we're still seeing more and more countries like Canada enact DSTs, and the proliferation of Pillar 1 and Pillar 2 has provided foreign countries the opportunity to raid our tax base. In fact, Pillar 2, as pointed out by the Joint Committee on Taxation, is going to cost the U.S. Treasury tax revenue. Pillar 2 itself, as pointed out by my colleague, Representative Ferguson, that is $120 billion. And earlier this year, JCT report on Pillar 1 noted that the plurality of in-scope countries would be from the U.S., and likely that the U.S. Treasury would forego between $100 million and $4.4 billion per year in tax receipts. In fact, I recently heard from one Fortune 100 company that they'd be required to send between $100 and $500 million from the U.S. Treasury to countries like France and Germany and Japan. I think these policies that have been negotiated with OECD are dangerous for our U.S. tax base. We're already struggling to collect enough revenue, and I think we need to change course. I'm sorry I'm out of time. I'd like to talk more about this with you, but I'll yield back, Chairman.
All right, that's today's video. If you like it, like it. If you like it a lot, subscribe. If you want to see more news in high speed. Till the next time, y'all have a good one, and God bless you.